Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of Counties.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Podcast 83, the podcast put on by the Michigan Association of Counties. Today, we're going to do, what we have been doing a little bit in the past is doing a deep dive into a specific issue. Today, we're going to talk about the material management plan. So last year, at the end of session, the legislature passed a large package of large couple of bills, making changes to material management planning. There are timelines involved and costs involved, plans involved, much outreach involved. And so counties really need to be aware of what those requirements are and kind of where we are in the process. So today I'm joined by Madeline Fata, who is a legislative associate here at MAC and takes care of all of our environmentally related issues, and Christina Miller from the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. So I'm looking forward to a good, lively conversation today about all of these crazy requirements. Madeline, do you have anything you want to add to that? What do you think? What do we want to get out of this today?
I mean, I'll just back up to what you said late last year. We thought this package was dead. We were not expecting it to move. The Senate passed it at the 11th hour during lame duck. It's now been signed into law. It's exciting. We supported it throughout the process. It's making some necessary updates to Michigan's solid waste management, materials management planning. It's going to promote recycling, which is something the previous plan did not do so well. So yeah, I'll just turn it over to Christina if you want to give us a breakdown of some of the major changes and how counties can prepare for those changes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, we are excited as well at the department. We have been working on legislation for many years, as you guys probably know. And we too didn't know that it was going to happen until the last minute, but Happy New Year present, right? When that all got signed into law. Now, what that means is we have officially made the transition to a materials management focus. And through not just planning requirements, but also all of the requirements, bringing in additional facilities for regulation and reporting, and setting out standards that they have at the state. So the new law identifies a 45% recycling rate, a goal for that as in the state. And so everything that's in the law is now moving us and shifting us to accomplishing those goals. In addition to the fact that we're doing a new materials management planning program that helps to kind of connect all the dots of all those things to help shift counties in that direction. So a couple things about the new planning process, just so everybody's aware, all counties will have a materials management plan. You will not be able to keep your old solid waste management plans. Those will go, they'll be voided once you have a new materials management plan in the future. And until then, your major components of that plan, your solid waste management plan, stay in effect. So I should mention that. But essentially all counties will have a plan, whether you write one or somebody else writes one for you, your county will have one. The focus has shifted, like I said, to materials management. So it's no longer just solid waste disposal, it's other ways to manage your materials, such as your recyclables and organics, using recycling facilities, compost facilities, anaerobic digesters. And then basically the planning process will help to achieve the vision and the priorities set for each planning area. And I use the term planning area because we see that materials is not a single county, it's not a single county item. It is really a multiple county effort to have a full-on materials management infrastructure and program. And so a planning area includes a county if they do it singly, but it could also include multiple counties, which we really encourage folks to do that, because as we know, solid waste, recyclables, organics don't just stay within the county. They go beyond that. And it makes sense to really collaborate and to achieve, a better, more robust materials management infrastructure overall. And so some of the planning requirements is really hoping to create that needed infrastructure and program development for utilization for managing your recyclables and your organics. And it will help move Michigan overall towards those goals of the 45%, obviously, and also towards meeting what's called the benchmark recycling standard, which is basically an access and education standard. And by once this process is initiated, it's really going to bring back the personnel resources that are available statewide. Many years ago in 97, there were a lot more people at the county level that knew about planning, knew about their programs that they had in their county for recycling and composting. Even though it wasn't a focus in the solid waste management plan, there was still ability to offset your disposal capacity need by doing those programs. So there used to be point people in all the counties, or a lot of the counties, that could help direct people towards ways to manage their materials differently. And again, the focus has shifted to more of a regional approach, not necessarily in the region of your, Michigan Association of Region, but with counties that are around you. That, like, again, I said, you may already share infrastructure, you may already have programs that you're working with, or it may make sense to do that in the future. So we're really focusing on more of a regional approach as well. And there is regional incentives that we'll talk about, I think, later on in the podcast.
Yeah, if you want to dive into that funding piece now, I think that would be great. It's good to know that counties will have help from the state to develop and to implement these plans. And like you said, there's an incentive there financially for collaboration.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, there is. So when we were developing the legislation with our stakeholder group, it was very apparent that counties needed to have a sustaining amount of funding to help plan. Okay. It's not meant to, let's be clear, it's not meant to give you all the money you need to plan. It's about giving you a baseline set of dollar amounts so that you can properly plan and leverage those dollars to build the infrastructure and implement your plan, and maybe build the resources again throughout the state. So with that said, there is a specific grant program called the Materials Management Planning Grant Program per the law. And it will give every county who files a notice of intent to prepare their plan to become what's known as the county approval agency. So it's a new agency that didn't exist before. They would receive $60,000 per county per year. Okay. And then if you are working with multiple counties, you enter into an interlocal agreement with them, then you would get an additional $10,000 per county. So for example, a 3-county, multi-county plan, they would be receiving $210,000 a year just for the MMP grant for those dollars. The money flows into the CAA, the county approval agencies, and then into the county, and then to the CAA if it's not the county, because there could be situations where the county declines to prepare. And if that's the case, it would go to the regional planning agency and the municipality. So it goes municipalities first, working jointly, and then if they decline, it would go to the regional planning agency. If they decline, Eagle will prepare the plan for you, but you will have a plan somehow. So the money would go to the county and then be distributed to the CAA, and then for multi-county plans would then be distributed out as according to their interlocal agreement, whatever they're going to use to develop the plan, whatever they're going to use to implement the plan. Now, the other thing that the law has, which was pretty exciting, is that there is this 50 cents per capita, up to $300,000 a year for the first 3 years of the planning cycle. So that's it. So that money will never come up again unless legislation's enacted to allow something to happen again. So again, highly encouraging counties to prepare their plan, make sure that they're going to create their plan. They're going to get those dollars, the per capita, and at least the 60,000. And then if they're working multiple counties, then they would get the per capita in addition to the 70,000 per county. Does that help?
Yes, that's awesome.
Okay.
And maybe if we want to back it up a little bit, if you can outline just the first couple steps of the plan, the timeline of getting started, how counties can prepare, when it'll be initiated, what those first steps are once it's been initiated.
Yeah, so I look at this a little differently. So I'll tell you this. The law does identify 180 days after the effectiveness that the plan process will start. And that puts on the calendar, if you're using that date, September 25th is when we would initiate the planning process. That said, there's still discussions internally to discuss whether or not we are going to try to accomplish that and start the process in September, or maybe pushing it down the road. I think folks understand that there's a lot of people and a lot of things that have to happen in order to get the program up and running. But technically speaking, the law says 180 days. So that said, because the new process is line mechanism, so there are timeframes established in all the various approval process. And once we initiate the process, it comes from the director. Counties will be notified, the board of commissioners or county executive, depending on if you have that. They'll be notified, and then they have 180 days to determine whether they're going to act as that CAA, the county approval agency, or not. So first they need to decide that they're going to act on it. And then what has to happen is then they have to reach out to the adjacent counties to see about doing a multi-county plan. And you'll have to document that discussion or those consults that you're having with the counties to see whether or not they're going to do it. And then if there are counties that are choosing to do the multi-county planning route, they have to develop an interlocal agreement that would then all of those components would be submitted to the department within that 180-day time frame to technically file their notice of intent officially, and then they would be moved to the next step in the process. So because those are that's a fairly quick time frame. So we've talked to a lot of counties. We have a work group that we meet monthly with counties, DPAs, other folks that are interested in the planning process. And they, because they've said sometimes it takes us months to get on the board of commissioners agenda. There's all these things, right? So 180 days seems like a long time, but really it's not when you look at how all of those committees work. If you have multiple counties working, and then you choose to work together because it makes sense, right? Logistically makes sense, and financially it makes sense. There's resources that you can compile, and then you have to build out an interlocal agreement with those municipality, or that not municipalities, those other counties. And so we really recommend people to start at least discussing with each other, talking to the surrounding counties, those who they think may benefit from working together. Like I said, people that maybe you're using one county's recycling facility to manage your recyclables, and another county's solid waste infrastructure, and another county's organics management. And so maybe those three counties that are near each other, it makes sense to collaborate to help have one education program, one point person for their, there's all these pieces. So we really highly recommend to have those conversations. If you think you're interested in that, do that now. Also, we do recommend folks to look at local mechanisms that you have in place today. Do you have ordinances in place? Do you have host community agreements or contracts or other agreements that are there that may be coming up that are due? Okay, I don't think you have to pull everything off the shelf if they're not going to be revamped in another, for another 3 or 4 years. But as these things are coming up and the contracts, for waste hauling comes up, maybe at that point you need to really look at that and say, well, we have these new requirements to meet these recycling goals and to have collection points, and those, maybe we need to add some language into that contract to put out for different type of bid so that we can get other materials involved, or in your agreements that you have with facilities, that maybe you incorporate some of the potential implementation strategies, or at a minimum put a caveat in that agreement or those contracts or whatever to say, we're going to come back to this in the next couple years after our planning committee has time to really think about how we want to implement our county plan. So like, I don't want people to enter into agreements or mechanisms that are lasting another 10 years when we might really need you to come back and really look at them now, if that makes sense.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Thank you. And something for them to keep in mind. So this sounds pretty complicated. And, I'm excited for everybody to kind of tackle this challenge, because I don't think most of those plans have not been updated in a very long time. If they have, there's just been, small amendments here and there. So what about resources for them to go to? I mean, they can listen to this podcast, absolutely, but, just to kind of help them guide them through this long process.
Yeah, so our team has been working like previously. We're just trying to get a lot of stuff done. We have a subgroup of people from my larger work group, materials management planning work group, that we've been trying to develop guidance materials and we call them info sheets. And we do have a package of them routing through our approval process to get finalized and pretty, right, so they could get placed online through our environmental support division. So there's a package of those coming through that will be available. And all of these things can be found as they become available on our planning webpage, which is michigan.gov/Eagle MMP for materials management planning. And there is a section there for the guidance, 115 guidance information. And in there, we have a couple of resources already available. We have a preliminary Q&A document that we've kind of put out there, because we're, as you can imagine, getting a lot of questions about the same questions from a lot of people. So we said, well, let's get this information out there. It's not official. It's all preliminary when I say that Q&A document. And we have had to revise it since then. But I highly recommend you looking there. And then we have some info sheets available. We have a multi-county planning benefits document out there already, and MMP requirements info sheet. And then we have, like, as presentations, as we do presentations, we've been trying to add the slide presentation, the deck out there. So the slide deck's out there. And then when we get links to the actual sessions, we'll put those out there as well. I believe I have the UP forum, materials management forum presentation out there already. And then we just recently added a toolbox to our page as well, that if you click on there, there are example ordinances, agreements, there are websites of interest, there are kind of all of those type of things. We just have a whole bunch of stuff out there, different resources, some of them that aren't even ours. I mean, we have a link to the EPA site that they have a ton of resources there to help build out mechanisms and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I highly recommend you look at that too. And we do also have a link to our recycling specialists, our recycling team, because they're already out there doing technical assistance and outreach already as part of their duties. So, so that you can make sure you have a one point of contact. So I would highly recommend looking at our webpage.
That's a ton of information. Thank you very much. Holy cow. That's going to keep somebody busy full time, I bet.
Yeah.
Okay. Madeline, do you have any further questions for Christina or anything we want to kind of wrap up with?
I don't think so, but I would like to highlight the work groups that you guys are doing, right? Are they bi-monthly or are they monthly?
They're monthly. They're the third Wednesday of every month. And I believe they're 1:30 to 3 o'clock is what they are. So they're an hour and a half long. They are recorded, but sometimes it's more difficult to get the recording out there. I would highly, highly recommend getting engaged. So get on that work group if you're not already. Have somebody there at a minimum. You could have multiple people there from the county. I don't care anymore. I really need this message to be disseminated to the whole state, right? So whatever you need or your people, your constituents need to feel good enough to help disseminate that information or have a better understanding, I say get involved, right? So yes, come to those meetings, send me a request. You can, that email address is eagle-mmp@michigan.gov. That's our main mailbox for planning. And that will go to our recycling team, which consists of Carly Money and Amy Karana and myself. And so we certainly send a request there. And then also we have what's called a Gov delivery system that I think on any of the bottom of our web pages, you can go to it. It says, for more information, you can join these and subscribe to various interest groups that you want. So planning is one of them. Part 115 is one. There's all sorts of them. So I highly recommend joining those as well.
Awesome. Great information. Thank you so very much, Christina. I'm sure, our members are going to find this is extremely useful. So we appreciate your time today. I think
yes.
we'll get a lot out of it, and this will not be the last time you hear from us, for sure. We'll reach out with members who have questions. So
awesome. I really do appreciate the time to speak about it. It's an exciting time for all of us. A lot of stuff happening, and we know it, right? We know that everyone's like, what are we doing? Right? And just know we're trying to we're trying to work through these things at the same time. And we need your input. If you have questions, please send them to us and our team so we can help. We're creating this program as we speak, right? So this is your time to help us create the program that's most useful for overall our materials management program in our future. So thank you so much, you guys.
Awesome. Thank you. And with that, I think we'll wrap up this special episode of the podcast 83. And again, thank you for your time, and stay tuned, everyone. We'll be back with more information for you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83.